All right. Has everyone had a good day so far? Yeah. Woo! Okay, one more session before happy hour. Woo! All right, there we go. I'm looking forward to some fruit juice. Good old fruit juice. All right. Enhance. That's smart. Okay. Vodka helps? Yes. Okay. Wonderful. So welcome to this master class on public speaking. We're so excited to be joined by Michael, aka Mike Pacchione, Academy Facilitator with Duarte, which is a renowned communications firm that specializes in helping top organizations move people with their ideas through empathy and compelling stories. So we're really lucky to have Mike because he has done work with some of the top brands and companies such as Nike, Google, Twitter, and others he's not at liberty to divulge. But Mike is also a really good friend of mine, shockingly, of 17 years. We worked on a dude ranch in Wyoming together. Wyoming, and road tripped across country. So shared many a bed as friends and across country in motels, hotels, and campgrounds. So if you want the inside scoop on Mike, I have plenty of stories. But really glad that he could be here with us. He came all the way from Portland, Oregon. So excited what he can teach us. So welcome, Mike.
No, that was great. That was great. No, really, Margaret and I have known each other for a while. We've done some weird things together. I think that's the, should I phrase that better? I think this was the coldest day of our lives. Do you remember that? I don't know what we're doing here. And then personal favorite, so this I think was in like Wyoming or somewhere, and then right down the road. That was the first time I ever rollerbladed. My strategy was that the ground will enable me to stop. Yeah. Hey, that has nothing to do with today's workshop. I just thought it was kind of funny to share those. I wanted to talk about presenting yourself, and I specifically wanted to share with you about the day before the best day of my life. The day before the best day of my life. So the best day of my life was, and I think a lot of people would say this about their lives. Did that splash? We're good? Okay. The best day of my life was, and a lot of people would say this about their lives, that was a nerve-wracking moment. The best day of my life was my wedding. A lot of people, that's their case. That was the best day of my life. The day before was a different experience. So if you're married, you can probably identify with what I'm about to say, and if you're not, you will probably have this for yourself. Which is, there comes a point, and it's not necessarily the day before your wedding, but at some point, you've got the moment of, oh, this is really happening. And I remember having that feeling, and for me, it was at our wedding rehearsal. And I snapped a photo of it. It's that moment of, oh, this is really going down, isn't it? And perhaps because of what I do for a living, I started thinking about like how strange it was to be rehearsing a wedding. Because if you think about what you're doing when you're rehearsing a wedding, I mean, what we're really doing is we are rehearsing basic human mechanics, right? I mean, we're rehearsing things like walking. We're rehearsing things like laughing. We're rehearsing things like standing. And we're rehearsing things like kissing. As if we would forget how to do that on our wedding day. And here's what I found funny about that whole experience. I was thinking to myself, I am spending more time and I am putting forth a bigger effort rehearsing the basics of being a person, walking, laughing, standing, kissing. I'm spending more time rehearsing that than most of the clients that I help with like big deal presentations spend rehearsing those. So people who are putting together presentations that like could be for a promotion, could net you like a big deal, could be a job interview, could be presenting to a member of Congress, and we just walk in there like, well, I'll be okay. That's what most people do. Can you see the problem here? So what we're going to walk through today is we're going to walk through how we can best practice in regular life for really big deal presentations. And I'm using the word presentation. This is really about conversations in general. So even though I'm talking about presentations, this is also when you're meeting with a member of Congress one-on-one, when you're having a big deal conversation with a spouse. Does it make sense that for things that have high stakes in life, we might want to think a little bit ahead of time about how it will come across to another person? Because that's what we are going to work with today. That's what we're going to talk about today. I want to say this as clearly as I can. What you do for nothing but nets matters. And we should behave accordingly. We rehearse for a wedding. We rehearse walking. We spend hours rehearsing a ceremony that we can't screw up. And for a presentation that might help funding, that might help people's lives, what a lot of us do is, well, it'll be okay. Not after today. Here's where we're going to start. So I am going to talk about like the things that in public speaking that people have trouble with. So saying and not having enough enthusiasm and things of that nature. So I am going to talk about that stuff. But actually my starting point for this is probably a different place than what you're thinking. The very first thing I want to start with is the psychology of the whole experience. The very first thing that I want to talk about is our starting point, which is we should be starting with why. Why we do this. Why you've flown in here from Michigan, from Illinois, from Wyoming, from wherever you are. Why you've flown in here. Now, you have an answer right now because we're in the middle of this session. But then someday you're going to go in and you're going to pitch your idea. Or you're going to be talking to friends about nothing but nets. And it will have become so familiar to you that you'll actually forget that to other people, it's not automatically exciting. And here's where you will see that. Someday you will be presenting in front of someone, and as you're walking into their office, or you're sitting in the lobby waiting for them, you will expect that the look on their face is really enthusiastic. Like we always think that our audience, like we picture our audience being really, really stoked. That's what we want, and that would be great if that were true. But that's not what audiences look like. More typically, audiences look like this. Looking at their phone, a million other things to do, and that's not because they're bad audience members, they just have a lot going on. And here's the other thing, like they don't know about nothing but nets already. I mean, maybe they do a little bit, probably not the level that you do. So with that being the case, like we need to prepare to show them what our enthusiasm level is, but we need to be mentally prepared to do that. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to start with why. And here is why we need to start with why. Because if we don't, what will happen is we're going to stare at an audience that looks like this. And we're going to see them, and we were expecting them to be so excited. We were expecting them to be like, yeah, this is really awesome. And they're going to look more like this. And then we're going to go into what I call feel bad for me moments. And those are the moments where you're like, oh, feel bad for me. No one likes me. I'm not doing a good job. I shouldn't even be qualified to be a volunteer, right? Like, you will hear that narrative in your head. Like, you will hear that. You've probably had that before. Maybe it's a job interview. Maybe it's a presentation. You've had that before. Like, no, I'm not good at this. Well, we are going to move beyond that. We are going to move beyond nobody likes me. I'm Eeyore, just presenting. I'm Eeyore in human form. Like, we're going to move beyond that. We're going to move, like, we need to own the mentality of I matter. What I'm doing matters. All of this stuff matters. And here's where we're going to start with that. I want to start, I've used this word why 17,000 times already. I'm 8 minutes in. I keep using it because this is the thing that matters, is why you're doing this. Do you all have an answer to that question? Like why you're here today, why you're volunteering, why you're a champion? Do you have an answer to that? Okay. I would like you to write that answer down. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. It can be a story, it can be a set of facts, whatever it is for you. Write that down. Why are you doing this? Okay, everybody got that? I realize that can be a really long answer, but you all have at least something written down, right? Yeah? Okay. So now follow-up questions, probably going to be a little more difficult depending on where you fall on the general confidence scale of life. The next question is, why are you the right person to deliver this message? So for some of you, that's easy. I mean, you can think of things right off the top of your head. Others of you are sitting there like, I don't know, I'm not very good at this. I'm not the right person. There's somebody who's better. I get that feeling. You are the right person. You know why? Because you've showed up here today. And if no other reason, you're the right person because you're the only person from Highland, Illinois, or your district in Wyoming, wherever you are, you're the only one who's here. So I want you to jot down, why are you the right person to deliver this message? Write that down as well. Okay, so what are some things people are writing for that second one? Why are you the right person to deliver this message? What are some, like, you can answer my question. What are some reasons people are writing down?
I've heard the impact that we've been making,
Uh-huh.
and it's now my job to share it.
And it's your job to share it where you live. Great. You've heard the impact you've been making. It's your job to share it where you live. Great. What else? Yeah?
Because I have the ability to make change.
You have the ability to make change. Great. Susie. I don't know. I'm guessing. I guess people's names when I don't know them. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm Susie for today, but I'm Joyce because I care and
Because you
I dare
care.
to take action
Yeah,
and
I'm
speak
the right
up.
person because I care. Totally. What else? Yeah.
Because I have passion to do this.
You have passion to do it. Great. What else? Yeah. Marco.
Because I'm from Africa and I have experience in malaria.
Yeah.
Most of that, I live in Omaha, Nebraska, where a lot of military people travel around the world and they can contract the disease and also they try to my state.
So, because he's from Africa, so he has experience with disease, and he's in Omaha where there are a lot of military people traveling around who might contract the disease. I don't think anybody's topping that answer. My guess is you have some answer written down. Oh, you want to? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had the mic and then other people kept talking. So I just kind of sat here with it. Is this even? Oh yeah, it is on. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
So I guess this is a little bit of a long answer, but as someone who has an unpreventable chronic illness, it's very important for me to eradicate the illnesses that we can prevent and we can get rid of so that that suffering is lessened. And, you know, I think that I'm the right person for this because I am passionate and I have a unique backstory that allows me to deliver this message effectively.
Well, that was a pretty good. That was pretty good right there, Marco. Okay, so listen. Even if your answer was not like on that level, you have an answer, and you need to own that answer because that knowledge that you are the right person at the right time to deliver this, that is what is going to power you through. So I want you to take this one level further, because what's eventually going to happen is you're going to be presenting in front of someone, they're not going to look that interested, and again, you're going to start hearing those dark thoughts, oh, feel bad for me, I'm not good at this. You're going to start feeling that. So we want to get this down. So it's great if you can give that answer, Marco's answer, and you've got a bunch of bullet points, but when you're in the moment, we actually need something shorter. So I want you to just fill in the blanks for me. Fill in the blanks like this. I'm doing this for blanks. That can be a person's name. That can be a group of people. You can change the wording on that, of course, but you might be writing down a person's name. You might write Anissa. You might write, I'm doing this for people who can't stand for themselves. Whatever your answer is, write that down right now. Oh, and you know what? Sorry, I should have told you this earlier. If you could, put that on another piece of paper and write it big. I am doing this for blank on another piece of paper. I am doing this for blank, and fill in the blank. All right, so now the fun really begins, because here's what we're going to do now. I would like you to partner up with someone. So turn to someone sitting next to you and find a partner, and then I'll give you instructions. So find a partner right now. No, you can be partners. That's totally fine. All right, here's what we're going to do now. Everybody's got a partner, yeah? Yes? Anybody left out? As if someone's going to raise their hand like I'm left out. But everybody has a partner? Everybody's got one. Okay. All right. Here's what we're going to do. What we're going to do now is we're going to practice delivering our message to someone who does not look interested. So here's what's going to happen. All right. Hold on. Person A, person B. So a lot of times we waste time like, well, do you want to go first? No, you should go first. Well, you should go. No, okay? Whoever has longer hair, you're going first, okay? Yeah. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Person A with the longer hair, you're going to go first, and what you're going to do is you're going to practice delivering the why out loud. So whatever you wrote down for that, here's why I'm doing this, you're just going to deliver that out loud. Do not worry about like getting it perfect. Do not worry about, oh, I don't know if that statistic is right. Don't worry about that. We're just practicing speaking it out loud. We have a question on that.
The why or the I'm doing this for blank?
No, the why.
The why.
The why. Yeah.
Just clarification.
Yeah. Yes, good question. So you were speaking out loud the why you're doing this. Frankly, I don't really care what you were saying out loud. The whole purpose of this activity is just to get used to delivering it to someone who doesn't look that interested. So I want you to deliver out loud. I want you to deliver out loud the why I'm doing this or whatever else you want to talk about. Person with the shorter hair, your job is, regardless of how compelling the person is that's talking to you, your job is to look stone-faced. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. She has to look stone-faced even if you're talking about her daughter. That is the assignment right now. So I'm going to give about a minute for the person with the long hair to go, and then you can see this coming. Then we're going to flip-flop. So I'm going to give you a minute to talk. I'm going to ring a bell, and then when you hear the bell, we're going to switch to the other person goes. All right? Everybody got it? All right. Whenever you're ready, get going. Okay, now switch. So whoever was talking, you're now listening, and you need to be stone-faced. Switch.
What's wrong is you gotta have something.
You're smiling. Yeah, that is an app. Yeah. I used to travel with a bell, and when you put a bell through like the little TSA thing, they're not enthusiastic about it. Do you know what they think it is? Yeah, they think it's a bomb. So yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. So the bell app is more helpful. Okay, how did that feel? It probably felt really hard, right? Person's just demonstrating no interest. Now, in real life, you'll probably see a little more interest than what you just did. But the important thing here is that your audience probably is not going to look as excited as you want them to. They're probably not. Now, if you model the excitement to them, and we'll talk about that a little bit, like that's going to be helpful. Did anybody realize the reason I wanted you to jot down I'm doing this for blank is because that's like the thought in the back of your head that fights against that, oh, they're not looking interested, I shouldn't, right? Like that mantra, that I'm doing this for blank, for the world, for Anissa, for John Paul, for whatever, that's what's going to help you fight against it. Okay? So whenever you're doing this in real life, try to remind yourself, here is who I am doing it for. So we start with figuring out and reminding ourselves why we're doing this. And now that we've done that, now we're going to move into the next part of the day, and I think this is a really important one. We're going to use our why to fight against a number of things today, one of which is the script. So this may seem strange. You've got paid professionals who put together like this great script, and it's got 7 parts to it, and really important statistics in there. But here's the problem. Here's the way I think of it. When I was in 6th grade, I had a poem I had to remember. It's called the Jabberwocky. I don't know if anybody else had to memorize this. You have to wait. They're still doing that in school? You have to memorize the Jabberwocky?
No, I just read it before.
You just read it before? Wow. That really is pretty good. Do you remember the first line? No, that's what I was thinking too. Do you remember the first line? Okay, I do because I got graded on it. Everybody in my 6th grade class had to memorize this poem, The Jabberwocky. And the reason why this was a big thing is because the words were fictitious. So the first line was, "'Twas brillig and the slithy toves." There's like one real word in there. We had to memorize this whole thing. Anything that we got wrong, you got circled, and you could see the teacher doing it. So it was just like, oh, such a crushing blow. And I think that your thing might not have been the Jabberwocky, but your thing was probably somewhere along the lines of life. You got this impression that there was a perfect script, and you need to follow that perfectly. And anytime you don't do that, you get that internal, oh, I forgot something. Let me transition this to real life. In real life, unless you are a celebrity apologizing for something, you do not need to have a perfectly worded script. What you need to do instead, because here's the deal, like let me tell you why. Your audience does not know what you are supposed to say. So that feeling in the back of your head like, oh shoot, what am I supposed to say next? If you don't know it, you know who else doesn't know it? Yeah. Your audience. Your audience doesn't know that either. So, with that being the case, what we need to do is to use this script as our guide. And I'm not saying guide as in like throw it out. I mean, it's our guide, but it is our guide, but you really need to make it yours. So that's understanding it, putting your own stories in there, speaking to it in your own way. And again, I'm not talking about radically deviating from the plan, but simply making it your own. Now, a lot of times people freak out about this because like, wait, but I need to know everything perfectly. And I know one thing that I've always struggled with is as much as I feel comfortable deviating from the script and using the script as a guide, statistics are really hard for me to remember sometimes. Anybody else like that? Like the numbers are what's hard, right? Totally. Okay. So I want to give you a way that I have found helpful to remember statistics. So one statistic that you've seen or heard like 1,000,000 times today is this one, right? You've seen this 1,000 times. Okay. This is one that you probably will just remember because one every 2 minutes, like that's fairly easy fractions and everything. I've looked into a lot of what makes something easier or harder to remember. And I actually read a book on this that was super interesting. It's called Moonwalking with Einstein, and it's about the American Memory Championships. So there are these people in America and all over the world, in Europe they're the best, who can remember like 10 decks of cards in a row, like the exact sequence of 10 decks of cards in a row. 5 of hearts, 9 of diamonds, queen of clubs, right? Like they can just remember all of that in a row. So do you think that they just remember that sequence? Like I forgot it and I just said it 3 seconds ago. What they do instead is they equate a visual to each card number, and they've thought of that ahead of time. So in the book, I think like the 5 of hearts is like Dom DeLuise on a unicorn or something like that. If you can picture something, like pictures will stick in your head better than words will. Pictures will stick in your head better than words will. And the more ridiculous the image, the more likely you are to remember it. So returning to this one, now this is a basic example, and then we'll move on to one that's a little harder. Every 2 minutes, so we're going to try to remember the number 2. Can anybody think of a visual that does not involve going to the bathroom that will remind them of the number 2? Can anybody remember a visual? What's that? What? Sesame Street. What on Sesame Street? The big 2 on Sesame Street. So the actual, perfect. What else? Yeah. Fish. One fish, two fish. So 1 fish, 2 fish. Just remember that. Perfect. For me, I'm a sports person. I don't know if other sports people are in here. But for me, I know a lot of jersey numbers well. It's ridiculous and stupid and a total waste of brain power, except for things like this. So for me, I am just going to remember a famous number 2. I don't like the Yankees one bit, but Derek Jeter famously wore number 2. I will just remember number 2. So now let's move on to one that's a little more difficult. So another statistic or another number that you will need to remember is this one. We're working to eradicate malaria by the year 2040. Okay. I've heard from a reliable source. Okay, 2040. Thank you for clarifying. That's going to be an embarrassing moment for me. So 2040. 2040. Okay, so now we're trying to think of numbers that will remind us of 2040. Can anybody think of that? What do you think we can do?
The old rap album, Deltron 3030. So for me, when I think about that, I go, if I think Deltron, I go, all right, Deltron 2040 for me. But if I think
Perfect. Love it. Instead of Deltron 3030, it's now Deltron 2040. Great. Love it. Love it. What other ideas? And what else jumps to mind? What's that?
1,000 more than our tax form.
1,000 more than the tax form. That's great. That's great. Anybody else? Yeah.
40 is that 20?
Yeah, 40 is double 20, right? So 20 times 2, 40. That's an easy one. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, what else? It's your address. So 24, and you would just add zeros in between. Yeah, let me give you another one. Like for a number like this, any kind of date, I mean, is anybody confused and they're going to think it was like by 1940? Nobody's going to think that, right? And nobody's going to think it's 2140 because you wouldn't be the one talking about it. So you could actually just remember the number 40. But you're not going to, right? So for me, that's like the movie This Is 40. Whatever it is, the point is you're going to remember a visual better than you would remember words. So this will also work, you know, when you're trying to remember like different stages of things. I know that you've got a 7-step process, and one of them is this. Remember, so step 1 is introduction. Hopefully you'll remember to introduce yourself. Step 2 is talking about the impact of malaria, right? So if I'm trying to think like what is step 2, it's going to be easier for me to remember a visual than it would be just a set of words. So for me, again, the more ridiculous the visual, the more likely I am to remember it. So I drew this one. It's meant to be a mosquito. I know it kind of looks like a grasshopper, but hopefully I'll remember that. And then this is where you can get creative and fun with it. Okay, so phase 3. What's phase 3? Anyone remember? Okay, so number 3, why your constituents care about eradicating malaria. Well, this is a long one. This is hard. We can maybe forget it pretty easily. Anything jump to mind as to like visuals that you could use to help you think of this? If not, don't worry. I've got a great one for you. Okay, let me show you what I came up with. Remember, this is just for me to remember. This is just for my brain to remember what's next. So this does not have to be like this thing that I'd give to other people and they would understand. For me, I thought of my friend Kate. She's rad, and she's wearing a t-shirt that reminds me of that. Like, eradicate, yeah? Yeah, got it? That's good, right? And then, because I'm trying to remember my constituents caring, like the constituents of the district caring and being concerned, she's thinking, I care. That's a visual that I can remember. So that's pretty good, right? Yeah. So that is the idea of just, we will remember visuals better than we will remember words. I know, isn't that fun? Yeah, and the more visual you are, probably the easier that will be for you. So the next thing we're going to talk about is fighting against being robotic. So for this, I need a volunteer from my audience. Whoa, hands shot up. All right.
I like volunteering.
Okay, what's your name, Kelly?
Sammy.
Sammy, can you come up here?
I could be Kelly. I mean.
Okay, Sammy. So I'm going to give you something to read. And your instructions on how to read it are right there. Okay? Whenever you're ready.
You, with your words like knives and swords and weapons that you use against me, you have knocked me off my feet again, got me feeling like I'm nothing. You, with your voice like nails on a chalkboard, calling me out when I'm wounded. You, picking on the weaker man, you can take me down with just one single blow, but you don't know what you don't know. And someday, I'll be living in a big old city, and all you're ever gonna be is mean. Someday, I'll be big enough so you can't hit me, and all you're ever gonna be is mean. Why you gotta be so mean?
You can sit back down. Okay. All right, so what do you think? Were you moved by that? Does anybody know what she was reading, by the way? Yeah, Taylor Swift song. Mean. Yeah. She has a little more enthusiasm than Sammy just demonstrated. By the way, if you're thinking Sammy felt robotic, that's because I instructed her to feel that way. All right. Now, that might seem like a ridiculous example. Why are we even talking about this? Nobody reads things that way. They do. You'd be amazed at how people sound when they are presenting things that they should be enthusiastic about. And that's the next thing that we need to fight against, is that incredible tendency to sound robotic or unenthusiastic. So let me give you some advice here. This is where, again, it's uncomfortable being the one presenting or the one who is leading, because what we want is for me to be presenting and my audience is sitting there like, oh my gosh, I love this. I can't wait for him to keep talking. He is sounding so good. That's not how most audiences are. What we need to do when we're the ones presenting, we're the ones conversing with MOC, is we need to lead them towards the direction that we want. Your audience will mimic the emotions that you demonstrate. So we need to speak with conviction. We need to speak with enthusiasm. If we're happy about something, here's a real trick. If you're happy about something, smile. You probably think you do, and especially if you are a man, you probably don't. Men in the business world do not smile. I will not let you see that I am a human. That's how most men are when they're presenting. Now that sounds ridiculous, and how can I not be enthusiastic? Here's what I want to ask you to do. You don't do this right now, but here's what I'm going to ask you to do, is when you are practicing, I would like you to actually record yourself. What, you're already saying you're not going to do that? I hate doing that. Everybody hates doing that. But this is why, because internally you know how enthusiastic you are, because you know yourself and you are feeling your own emotions. Nobody else is feeling that. So record yourself. Just a voice memo. If you want to take it even further, have someone record you like an actual video. Watch it, listen to it. I guarantee you, you do not sound as excited as you think you do. And your audience, again, I just want to repeat, like your audience will follow the emotions that you have. Your audience will follow the emotions that you have. So it is on us. Think of who you're doing this for, whatever you fill in the blanks with. It is on us to bring ourselves closer, to bring our audience closer to adopting our whole idea of being on the same level with our audience. So we need to model enthusiasm for our audience. And at this point, my clicker seems to not, oh wait, no. That's why. Okay. We need to model that for our audience. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're going to freestyle the rest of the way. So we need to model enthusiasm for our audience. That's the next thing, is we need to model enthusiasm for our audience. And having done that, the next thing that we need, so the whole thing is hard. It's hard talking to people who are like in Congress and who've been elected officials. And what happens to a lot of us is we get really tense. So I want to help you fight that. If you could, I'd love everybody, every single person in here to stand up. Okay, and I want you to act out two different things. So I'm going to give you the first one. First one is this. If you could, I want you to, don't say anything out loud, but I just want you to act the way, like show me how you would feel if you were cold. What would that look like? Yeah, okay. Great. Is anybody brimming with confidence right now? People who are always brimming with confidence are, most people are not. Yeah, okay. So now I'd love for you to act something else out for me. All right, so Margaret and I worked together in Wyoming, and one of the things we learned on the very first day was the whole thing, when you might come across a mountain lion. So what you're supposed to do is like throw a rock off in the distance and make them feel like, oh, there's reinforcements coming. But if that doesn't work, does anybody know what you're supposed to do?
Play dead.
Not roar, no. Yeah, you're supposed to get big. Yeah, get big. So I want you to practice that right now. So I'd love, what would it look like, mountain lions in front of you, you're gonna get big. What's that look like? Okay. All right. Standing up, okay. All right. When did you feel more confident? When you were big or when you were cold? When did you feel more confident? Big. When you were big, right? Yeah. Here's something that's unfair about life, but it's true. The bigger you are, the more power is attributed to you. You can sit down now, by the way. The bigger you are, the more power can be attributed, or the more power is attributed to you. So they've done studies on this. It's pretty fascinating stuff. When you get big, so when you act like you did around mountain lion, I realize if there were a mountain lion in front of you, you wouldn't be brimming with confidence. But generally speaking, when you get big, that's called winner's posing. So this woman, Amy Cuddy, did all this research on it. It's like when you've won a race. So at the end of track and field race, like you won, like your hands go up, right? Like nobody's ever like, oh, I won, right? And gets all small. They've studied this stuff, and what's actually happening is the chemicals in your body that make you tense, those chemicals are going down, and the chemicals that give you more confidence, those are going up. So what we're doing here, what we should be doing is we should be fighting against being small by trying to be big instead. Now, walking into a session with a member of Congress, I mean, is anybody going to walk in with like your arms out? Walk in the room like this? Okay, because that would look ridiculous, right? Okay. Here's what you can do instead of that: is you want to take up as much room as you can without looking ridiculous. And one of the things you can do is, she studied this too. If you're not going to do like that, this pose. If you go like this, so hands on your hips like Wonder Woman, that will do the same thing. So if you just stand like this for a minute, that will do the same thing. It will boost your confidence level. Now, you're wondering something else, which is, well, but hold on, but what do I do? Because some of you are going to be in a situation where you're sitting down, right? So what do I do when I'm sitting down? What do you think you should do?
Good posture. Open your body.
Posture, yeah, and open your body like Sarah said. So everybody, let's do that. So sit up tall but comfortable, and then open your body, all right? Okay, so we don't want to look like, we don't want to look like somebody who's on the couch and just be like totally sloppy, but yeah. We want to open up as much as we can. So when you are in a room with a member of Congress or whomever, when you are sitting down, what we want to do is we want to open up as best we can. We want to open up as best we can. If you're sitting around a table with someone, I think what we typically do is we'll sit across the table. Don't do that. You know why? What do you think that communicates when you're sitting across the table from somebody? Yep, me versus you. So what you actually want to do, whether it's on a couch, table, you want to try to sit as close to them, again, like make it comfortable, but sit as close to them as you can. And open your body up. When you're sitting there like this, which is what a lot of us do, we're just making ourselves more tense. We're just making ourselves more tense. So one other thing I wanted to discuss was the fight against what I call those words. So do you know anybody who, if you were to jot down what it looked like for them to speak, it would look like this? Yeah? Who is it for you? Your sister. Is she here? How does your sister talk?
When I'm on the phone with her, she'll be saying, or, yeah. So, I can barely understand her.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So she ends up doing two things, it sounds like. Like, number one, she rambles. And number two, she doesn't let you hear her, really, because she's just filling in every little silent gap. We ramble really easily. I'm guessing every single person has at some point rambled, right? Okay, and do you ever have that thought in your head like, oh my God, why am I still talking? Do you have that? Okay. So let me, And this is your most awkward memory. So, again, this actually happens a lot when someone's looking at you stone-faced. Our thought is, they just don't get it yet, so I should keep talking. We actually want to do the opposite. We want to err on the side of less words. If you're sitting there and if your audience just looks confused, you might want to ask, are you tracking with me? Are you following me? You can like, I'm giving you permission to ask those questions. But if they look stone-faced, don't just keep talking, because that's actually just making them more confused. So some words that I've found that have been helpful, if you do find yourself rambling, like it happens. If you do find yourself rambling, here's some phrases that I've found to be helpful. First one. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but the point is blank. I'm giving you permission to use that phrase. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but the point is that there is a big malaria problem in this world. Another one, basically the same thing, just different verbiage. I feel like we've gone a little off topic, but my point here is blank. And now let's talk about the situation specifically, because this happens all the time. Ums happen for two different reasons. Reason number one, abject nervousness. I'm not prepared, I don't know what to do, so I just end up So that's one reason why it happens. Second reason why it happens is what probably happens with your sister, which is that I'm uncomfortable with things being silent. If that's the case, here's what I want you to do. I want you to picture as if when you are writing, someone is transcribing. And if someone's transcribing when you're writing, there's a period at the end of a sentence. After a period, if you're typing out a paper and you put a period at the end of a sentence, what would come next? A space. Okay. So when there's a space, here's what I want you to do. When you're picturing, so I write out this whole thing, there's a period. When there's a space, here's a foolproof way to not say anymore. Close your mouth. This is literally how you stop saying I do want to just tell you one thing about ums, because people all the time, oh, I'm not good at public speaking, and say all the time. That's not why you're not good at public speaking. The #1 TED Talk has more than 45 million views, so this is like the best presenter of all time, right? Sir Ken Robinson, he's the best guy. I counted one time, he says like 41 different times. What? How does his message get through? Because he sounds confident anyway. The reason why ums are a problem is when you're not letting the audience breathe or when you're making it sound like you're nervous. I'm giving you permission. I mean, don't just go crazy with it, but I'm giving you permission to say So listen, y'all, I could keep talking about this forever. I'm happy to keep answering, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Let me bring things forward. When you go out and present to members of Congress or in your life, anytime you will have presentations that matter. But here's what I want to remind you of. When you're presenting to Congress, when you're presenting for nothing but nets, when you are sitting down with a member of Congress, the stuff that you do matters. Tomorrow I get on a plane to Atlanta. I'm going to do a workshop down there on Tuesday for a cable company. I love cable too. Homeland's great. That does not matter what you're doing matters. So here's what I'd like you to do. Moving forward, if you could, grab your phone right now. Today is April 23rd, right? April 23rd? I want you to go to May 23rd in your phone with a schedule for May 23rd. Choose one or two of the things that we talked about today. When I say we talked about, it could be me, it could be what Aaron talked about this morning. Anything that you learned today, like a trick that you want to implement. May 23rd, set yourself a reminder. And that reminder can say something like, am I working on pausing? Am I working about closing my mouth instead of saying Am I remembering why what I'm doing matters? Set yourself that reminder. You can do it from before May 23rd if you want, but I just think a month is realistic. And here's the great thing, the things that we talked about, not saying being enthusiastic, like you can do that in regular life. It doesn't have to be, oh, okay, well, I'm going to present to someone from Congress. I'm going to be enthusiastic today. You can practice this in regular life. And here's why. I'm going to check back with Margaret. My job's funny. I fly to places. I help people become better presenters. I go in for 24 hours. I got here last night. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, so I guess it's more like 36 this time. But I fly into a place. I'm there for a little while. I fly back. I'm like a communications hitman or something. And I don't know what happens with you, but the worst thing that could happen would be for me to check back with Margaret in a month, and I'm like, okay, so how's it going? Like when people are pitching, da-da-da-da. And then if Margaret were to say, oh, well, you know, I've got this great organization, and people have flew in from all over the country to come to this event. And we've got like these great corporate sponsors, and like we work with Steph Curry, and he's like the coolest basketball player right now. But, you know, practicing was really hard for this group, so I'm sorry. Like, that would be the worst thing. My guess is you can do better than that. So if the next time you've got a big presentation to give or a big conversation to have, and you're tempted to just listen to all that, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, oh, I basically know it, I'm going to be okay. If you're in the middle of doing all that and all of a sudden you hear a voice in the back of your head that sounds a lot like mine telling you that there's a better way, then, my friends, I will have succeeded. And with that, this has been fun for me. I hope it has been for you too. Thanks, y'all.
All right, how about that guy, Mike Pacchione? Thanks, Mike. Thanks so much.